So I brushed it off and I went numb. I picked up the phone again and I called back. Her cause of death was, what address would you like me to send the death certificate? I've been stalling this particular episode called Off the Record for so long because I would rather talk about everything: leadership, business, results, everything except who I actually am. I'm calling this episode Off the Record because, and I think being mysterious is a little bit sexy, right? I want to share my story, and it's a story of grief. It's a story of happiness. It's a story of self-realization and growth, personal development, and brand building. It's everything that makes me who I am to this day. But it all starts back when I was a kid, climbing on monkey bars, climbing on trees, and roller skating to friends' houses. And I was roller skating because I didn't have a way to get there and I couldn't drive. And I remember coming home one day, I was completely bent out of shape. So I had cuts on my knees and bruises, and I had fell a couple times, but I had somehow made it to the safety of my mother. And my mother was there to stitch me up and get me right. And you see, my mother was a social worker. And so she was actually there to help people with free resources, and actually even kids my age who were experiencing abuse and homelessness. And so growing up, she was very protective over me because she saw people my own age not having that safety, not having someone to advocate for them and protect them and keep them in a safe house, okay? So she would have a tissue in my face before I could even sneeze. That was the type of mother she was. And I found her to be the exact mother I needed to take risks later in life as an adult. Every time I think back to my childhood, I have good memories because I think, okay, that's where I established that the home is a safe place. And I knew other kids weren't having that as well. The home is a place to have emotional safety, support, food on the table. I'm not saying we had a lot, but we had enough to feel like the house was a home, okay? And so growing up with all of that, I had a pretty good childhood. And then I transferred high schools. And by high school, I was in a new school. I didn't know anyone. And there was this girl who was my age who kind of took me under her wing. And we had lunch together. She was studious. We had all kinds of things in common. And I just remember, and she was like not feeling well. Okay. And suddenly 1 week of not feeling well turned into 1 month of not feeling well. And we're 18 or 17. It's like, what do we know about not feeling well? You're in high school. You get a cold. Maybe you break a bone. You have a sports injury. But what do you mean that you're feeling sick week over week over week? A chronic illness as a 17-year-old wasn't really something that I knew of. And she comes to us one day and shares she has a cancer diagnosis, okay? And we were shocked. I mean, what does it mean to have cancer when you're a kid? We're a kid. We're not supposed to be talking about this kind of stuff. And she stuck in school for a couple weeks after that. And we tried to, lift her spirits up and stay kind of in a good state of mind. And then eventually it became too much. She got pulled out of school. Shortly after that, we got the news. Okay, she had passed away. Now, this was my first brush with death, with mortality. Okay, I had heard stories growing up of kids getting abused and all kinds of tragedies in the world, right? But I didn't actually have anyone that close to home get impacted. And now you have a bunch of teenagers showing up to a funeral, seeing their friend in the cap and gown because she wasn't able to cross the stage. And so they put her in that, and somehow needing to be an adult in that moment. Her family gets up and asks, can any of her friends share any stories about her? Any friends from school? And I had this moment where I was like, I remember her bringing this really funky snack from this random grocery store, and we all tried it and hated it, and I could give some stories about her. But in that moment, I froze because I was numb. What do you mean I need to go up in front of all these people and explain that the person who was my age is no longer here? It just was not comprehensible. So I stayed silent, and that truly stuck with me, okay? I go to college. I do all the things my family wanted me to do, get the degree, get the job at a Fortune 500 company, be the person that was deemed successful, okay? And I remember right after college going into the office, and I get a call from my dad that his mother, my grandma, just passed away. All right, well, this is awful. And I was kind of struggling that day, but I was thinking, like, okay, rationally, this is someone who's lived a full life. When grandparents pass away, it's hard, but they're older. Like that 18-year-old friend that I had, or 17, like that was really, really a life cut short. A year after that, my grandpa passes away. Same sort of thing where I'm like, okay, the Grim Reaper is really knocking on some doors. I don't know who's next. They say that death comes in threes, okay? And I'm coming up now into my corporate career, and I'm doing well for myself. And not long after that, life really woke me up, okay? My mom, that social worker who was waiting until retirement, she was a few years short of retirement, to fulfill her life as a screenwriter, as a creative, to put her vision on the screen, suddenly drops dead, okay? There was no warning. There was no decline. She had her lunch packed for work the next day to help people. The next day, she had clients booked. She dropped dead. Suddenly. No explanation, just boom. Suddenly. And it was her death that really propelled this evolution of self, of me. Because yes, I had had that safe home. She had helped me in so many ways as a child. I had had a beautiful upbringing. But when death continued to knock on my door, I had to question my life. Because now if you're telling me that actually no day is guaranteed, if you're telling me that life is not infinite, it's finite, and that at any moment, like my mom or like my friend at 17 years old, you can get a diagnosis or you can drop dead. Now you're telling me I need to actually live purposefully. This isn't just a platitude, right? Live like you're dying. This is actually real. Who else is next? And I had this moment where I was just so paranoid that I was going to get another call about somebody I loved. Okay, and here's the thing about grief. When somebody you love that you're responsible for passes away, there is an enormous amount of administrative paperwork. Nobody talks about this. That needs to get filed to insurance companies within a certain deadline. So when all you wanted to do, I was fairly young back then, was grieve, you were plagued with paperwork. And I remember calling the first insurance company, and they would say, what was the name of this individual and what was the cause of death? Okay, well, the name of this individual was, and I gave the name, and then I stopped. Cause of death? I just saw my mom 2 days before her passing. What do you mean cause of death? Because here's the thing about words. When you're speaking a sentence into existence, your mind is assuming it as true. Why would you say something out loud if you didn't expect that it was true? And so now I had to say the name of someone that was so important to me. And by the end of the period of that same sentence, put the cause of death. The name and the cause of death just didn't make sense together. So I broke down. I hung up and I was like, I can't do this right now. But one piece of paperwork turned into 10, turned into 20, and I needed to get through it because when I looked around, nobody was there to help me, okay? So I brushed it off and I went numb. I picked up the phone again and I called back. Her cause of death was, what address would you like me to send the death certificate, okay? And by the fourth call, I could do this in my sleep. Name is, death is, address. Name is, death is, address. Okay. I was shipping so many documents in that same week of her passing. You would have thought my living room table was a post office. You would have thought. And of course, this weighs on you when you go numb and you have to be the person that everybody relies on for strength. At such a young age, of course, this weighs on you. And you do the right thing and you go to therapy and you really figure out how to make meaning of something that seems so out of character. Why do bad things happen to good people? Yes, spirituality, huge awakening, all of that. I talk about, though, in my core values episode, how I couldn't work the same way I was working before her passing. I had an identity shift that started on the day of her passing and evolved into a life purpose. And so if by living and walking in my purpose, I can inspire one person, I can give meaning to one person, I can help people realize that the grief that they may have may help them with their perception of how they want to spend their life, I'll have done my job. So scratching the surface and grief and everything I've experienced as a kid is all wrapped up into an honor of my mom. And I'm so grateful for everything that she has shown me, for the person she was, for how she shaped me, and how her legacy will not go unnoticed.